Alright, so today we are going to be learning about chemical equations and how to be writing them and how to be reading them, and then what are the parts of a chemical reaction. So we're going to start by reading out how you would read this particular equation. So it says solid iron and oxygen gas react to form iron oxide. So what you need to start with is you're going to start with your reactants. Okay, that's these bits. You're going to just read them out. So these are called your reactants. So iron and oxygen. And what we do is we label and we give some indication of what the phase is. So these are called your reactants. You will be responsible for knowing this. All right, and then these S, G are called phase labels. And you're going to write that, a phase label, for every single compound or element that you have. So your four phase labels that you'll have are solid, liquid, gas, and AQ, which is actually aqueous. Okay, so solid, liquid, gas, and aqueous. That's AQUEOUS, and that means dissolved in water. So aqueous means dissolved in water. Please write that down. All right, so the next thing that you have is you're going to have this arrow. What that arrow means is that's going to be your yields. So that means that a reaction occurs. So the reactants are listing all of the ingredients going into the equation, okay, going into the reaction, and then you're going to end up with this, and this is going to be your products. Okay, so this only has one product, but sometimes there are multiple products. Okay, and that's what do you get out of the reaction? What does the reaction produce? So that's the products. All right. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to are these numbers. Okay, there's numbers out in front and there's numbers in the bottom. You know from our prior work that these are called subscript. Sub meaning below. And just like in math class, the numbers out in front, those are called coefficients. Okay, so coefficients are right here. All right, so those are going to be the parts of the chemical equation that you will be responsible for knowing. Your reactants, your products, your yield sign, which is that arrow, the phase labels, which are solid, liquid, gas, aqueous, which means dissolved in water, your subscripts, and your coefficients. All right. So now what we're going to do is when we're writing, taking an equation and trying to read it, we're going to be reading through the words. But sometimes we're going to be given a description and we're going to be having to write down what the equation is. Okay? But something that's important to know is diatomic elements. So diatomic elements, di meaning two, atom, two atoms. Okay? They're actually elements that naturally occur in pairs. So they naturally occur in pairs. And one of our main ones that we use a lot is oxygen, O2. So you'll never see a singular O, oxygen, it'll be O2 gas. That's how it naturally occurs. So we talk about these being the 7 plus 1 club. That's how you can remember it. And basically there's 7 elements in the shape of a 7, 1, NOF, and then all the way down to AT. They look like a 7, and there's 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the plus 1 is going to be hydrogen because hydrogen often defies our logic and is thrown in there. So these are our 7 plus 1 club. So I want you to kind of draw a little periodic table and make sure you label in which elements these are, the 7 plus 1. So N, O, F, Cl, Bri, At, and H. Those are going to be your 7 plus 1 club. When we're writing those, we always have to use that little 2, the subscript of 2, to show that it naturally occurs in a pair. So let's try it out in our next example. Okay, this is an example of writing a chemical equation. We've got liquefied propane gas used for cooking in suburban areas away from natural gas lines. Okay, so if you don't have natural gas hooked up to your house, sometimes you use propane gas like in the barbecue for a grill. So propane, which is C3H8, burns an oxygen gas, producing carbon dioxide gas, water vapor, and heat. We're going to write an unbalanced equation. Okay, so what we're going to start out with is listing our reactants. Our reactants are what we start with. You'll notice that propane and oxygen are the only two things we start with before our produces. So produces is where we're going to have our arrow. Okay? propane gas is going to be C3H8, and it said propane is a gas, okay, plus oxygen gas, and we're going to put oxygen, but we know that oxygen is actually a diatomic, okay, so it's actually going to be O2 gas, and then we're going to yield carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide, 2 oxygens, and we know that's a gas, plus water vapor, H2O, and it says vapor, so that means it's going to be producing the gas form, and heat, okay? So if you want to, you can write plus heat there. You don't have to. The other way sometimes we put this triangle, H, for that's heat, all right? So sometimes we do that, all right? We don't have to worry about that, okay? So you can write plus heat. And that's going to be our chemical equation for this. Next one is going to be reading chemical equations. So now we're looking at an equation, how are we going to verbally say it, and how are we going to write it out? So this one is going to be a little bit more complicated. So here I'm going to start with ALS. I say aluminum, and it's a solid. So we can say aluminum metal reacts with oxygen gas So I'm just going straight through. Good. Now I have to use the arrow. To yield, so yield means produce. And then we just need to name this. Aluminum oxide. All right, and we could even write solid aluminum oxide. So I can push that in, solid aluminum oxide. All right, so something that's important, this is actually going to be type 1 naming. So you're going to have to remember your naming. Okay, and that's it. All right, awesome job. We'll do some practice in class tomorrow.